Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone, and thanks very much for being here, and Hal, thanks very much for being interested in the mining industry. As we see, our price of metal is soaring, and juniors like Delta and many others are not yet. So let's get into it. So let me introduce you to Delta Resources. Delta Resources, a Canadian junior explorer. Exploring in Canada. Our flagship is in Ontario, so prime jurisdiction. We've got 131 million shares outstanding. We're trading at 12 cents, and our cash balance at this point is about 6.6 million, all in Canadian dollars. I'm foreseeing a little bit of the future here because we are completing a financing which is included in the 6.6 million. It's just waiting for TSX approval. But it's done, and you should know that we're raising $5 million. About half of that is coming from insiders. So we truly, truly believe in our project. In late 2022, Delta made a discovery that won the Discovery of the Year award in Ontario, an intersection of 31 meters of 5.9 grams per ton gold. And I don't want to offend any project or anybody here, but this project is not in a remote country of Africa in the high Andes or in the frozen Arctic. We're actually sitting right next to the Trans-Canada Highway, 45 minutes from a port city of Thunder Bay, Ontario. So in terms of location, it just does not get any better than that. So let's focus a little bit more on the property. As you can see, we are 50 kilometers west of Thunder Bay, Ontario. There. So the deposit is right next to the Trans-Canada Highway. There are 2 power lines on the property already. And in 2024, we've embarked on a property acquisition phase, and we now own pretty much the eastern part of the Greenstone Belt where we are located. We own now a property that's 308 square kilometers in area. So just to give you the lay of the land and show you that I'm not lying, we are on a drone now looking towards the north. The Trans-Canada Highway is located right here. And if I had to draw the deposit, I would draw it right here. So as you can see, we're really right next to the Trans-Canada Highway. The deposit is right at surface, and it's actually a topographic high. And you can probably notice on here that the majority of the deposit, or the deposit area of the property, has actually been logged once, or you can see some clear cut here. It's been logged once or twice already. So if we look towards the west, we see more of the same, really. And you can notice, again, that there are large areas that have been clear cut. These areas here have been cut before, and they're ready for a second cut. If you look towards the east, more of the same. We even have a cell phone tower on the property. So that is how close we are to infrastructure. So because we're so close to infrastructure, capital expenditure is going to be kept to a minimum. Environmental assessment is going to be kept to a minimum and short time frame. And operating costs, because we're so close to the city of Thunder Bay, operating costs are also going to be very low. So we're looking north again, and we're going to go underground. So the Trans-Canada Highway is right here. A little soccer pitch here for you British folks. And we're going to go underground. So at the end of 2023, we took it upon us to evaluate what we had already at the deposit. So this is not a 43-101, but it was done with 43-101 specs. And the reason why it's not a 43-101 is that right now our drill spacing is a little bit wider than what would be required to get an inferred resource. That said, really what it does, it defines a drill-defined target already. So at the end of 2023, after 25,000 meters of drilling, we had outlined a zone that was 2 kilometers of strike length from surface to about 300 meters vertical, and anywhere between 10 meters wide and 85 meters wide. These are true widths. Now, what we did here, and this image is not pixelated, the blocks that you're seeing are 5 cubic meters. We have capped all of our grades to 10 grams per ton gold, and we have taken 0.3 grams per ton gold as a cutoff grade. And with gold at 2,700 or even 2,600, that may actually be lowered at this point. So the mineral inventory that we've calculated here is about anywhere between 1.2 million ounces and 2.2 million ounces, grading anywhere between 1.05 to 1.27 grams per ton gold. Now, one thing you'll notice as well is there is a high grade core to this mineralization that is in the 1 to above 2 grams per ton gold. So if there were to be a starter pit here, this is where it would be. So we're flipping the deposit here, and we're looking, I'm going to move it just a bit. We're looking down, so you can see there are 3 different zones to the deposit. And again, so the north is in this direction here. You can see that high-grade core in here right at surface. We're flipping the deposit again, for hopefully nobody's getting nauseous here. The north is in that direction. This is a cross section now, and we're looking at the deposit, and you can see how it is very, very steeply dipping towards the north and very wide. And again, I mentioned this is 2023, so this block model is from 2023. We have drilled since then about 10,000 meters. We've extended the deposit at depth by about 50 meters, and we've extended it to the east as well. So more of the same. Now we're looking towards the north, and this is the longitudinal section. And again, you can see this core of mineralization here, high grade, plunging in this direction, and never tested at depth at this point. But this is, in the works. I have to apologize. I was told, well, I'm not sure if I apologize. I was told there's going to be some technical people in the crowd, so we're going to see some rock shots here. So we are located geologically in what is called the Shabandawan Greenstone Belt. The deposit is on the Shabandawan structural zone, which marks the northern boundary of the belt. It's a gold endowed crustal scale structure, i.e. very big and very deep, and it marks the northern boundary of the Greenstone Belt. On strike with us is another deposit called the Moss Lake deposit, which sits at 6 million ounces of gold. Now, since then, of course, we've acquired several more of these structures to the south that remain pretty much untested, so we're heading in that direction, but I'll talk about this a bit later on in the presentation. Again, for you folks, geologists, I'm only illustrating this for a couple of reasons. In my opinion, there are 2 major factors that are necessary to create giant ore deposits. One is alteration. So you need large scale and very intense alteration. Alteration is when those fluids come through and they bring the gold mineralization. In our case, they alter these rocks. You can get a large alteration without getting deposit, but you don't get a large deposit without getting those large alteration zones. The second important factor is time. These deposits, the giant deposits, need a lot of time to form, and I'm going to try to illustrate this here. So here, this is a geological map of the property. You can see what the rocks look like at surface. So we are lying between the rocks in blue here, there are sediments, and the rocks to the south that are the volcanosedimentary belt here. What I want to illustrate here is that the structural zone where the deposit is lying is about here. It's about 500 meters wide, where all the rocks are intensely altered, and we've now outlined it over 5 kilometers of strike length. So again, this is a very large alteration zone, which is necessary to to form these large deposits. Rock shots. So now we're looking at what the mineralization looks like. The mineralization is a stockwork, so there are a bunch of little veinlets that are quartz, anchorite, visible gold, a little bit of pyrite, a bit of arsenopyrite. The more you've got, the more veinlets you have, the more grade you have. And in this case, this was 2.06 grams per ton in our hole 30 for over 65 meters. Again, pretty much right from surface. A bit of close-up. Hey, it's a gold presentation, so we want to show a little bit of gold. The veins are anywhere between 1 millimeter to 3 centimeters, but we do have some veins of up to 4.5 meters thick, and we do have some quartz replacement zones as well. And again, this just illustrates what the veins look like. Now, I mentioned the two factors for large gold deposits or large deposits as a whole. This illustrates one of these types of factors. So what we're looking at is we're looking at the veinlets of mineralization. And when I write V1, V2, and V3, we see from the cross-cutting relationships of these veinlets that there are several pulses of mineralization. Now, we've identified a very minimum of 4 so far. And what this illustrates, it just shows that the system was long-lived. You had many, many pulses of that gold mineralization, and that is necessary to form large gold deposits. Now, the second factor, the alteration. I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but all I want to illustrate here is that these are the fresh rocks when they have not been altered by the mineralizing processes. And as you go down here, they get more and more altered. And what you see is just how intense that alteration is. So we've already seen that we have a large alteration package. Now what I want to show is that how intense it is. Again, another factor for gold mineralization, for large deposits. Very same thing here with our intrusive rocks. So this is relatively fresh, and as you go down, it gets more and more altered. The textures are completely obliterated. This alteration is extremely intense at this deposit, and it is widespread, and it alters all of rock types. So already with the little work that we've done so far, well, 2 years, about 30,000 meters of drilling since the discovery, we see some comparisons between our deposit, the Eureka deposit, and the Canadian Malartic deposit. Canadian Malartic is an 11 million ounce deposit in northern Quebec. And so far what we're seeing is, we're seeing that the geological setting between Eureka and Canadian Malartic are very similar. The timing of the mineralization and the type of gold mineralization is very similar, and the alteration is also very similar. The size, well, we're working on it. But Canadian Malartic is also next to the Trans-Canada Highway, so we've got more than just the geology in common. So we're looking now at the longitudinal section of the Canadian Malartic deposit, looking towards the north. So what you see is, there's a part that's open pit, but there's a very large part, that's underground as well. And all I want to illustrate here, so I'm going to superpose the Delta 1 drilling so far. So in red here is all of the drilling that Delta has ever done or that's ever been done on that property so far. And all I want to illustrate here is that we are just scratching the surface. We have 30,000 meters of drilling so far since the discovery, and I believe Canadian Malartic historically has had about 1.6 million meters drilled. Now, this is at the deposit scale. So we've now outlined this deposit, which we believe has a potential to be multi-million ounce, right at surface, right next to the Trans-Canada Highway. But we're seeing parallels between the geological setting of this deposit compared to other areas in the belt. And you see, I showed you the detailed geology of the area. So in yellow here is what we call these Temiskaming type sediments. And in the green are the volcano sedimentary belt. So we are right at the contact between these two types of rocks. So we had seen the government had identified areas in the belt that are similar, and we can see those areas to the south right here. So we're confident that those are the same rock types and the very, very same geological setting. Now, a little bit of history in the belt is important here to show the context. So this here is called the Inco Shibandawon mine. It was a copper nickel mine, mined between 72 and 98. The Inco, being the large copper nickel company, had a monopoly on this belt for decades. And they were exploring for copper nickel. A very different style of exploration than it is for gold. That said, in 1987, gold prices were going up to $800 an ounce. Inco decided to form a subsidiary called Inco Gold. Inco Gold was really survived for 2 years, and then it was sold to TVX. So in the meantime, Inco Gold basically had 2 years to make gold discoveries in this area. And they have left us with some of these occurrences here. I'm going to focus on this one in the next few slides here. So what happened is Inco Gold made these pretty darn great discoveries at the belt scale. And then when they sold to TVX as a corporate decision, they got rid of all of their exploration projects and only kept the producing assets. So this is what they left behind for us. So at the I-zone sector here, Inco intercepted right from surface 14 meters of 3.3, 4.3 grams over 41 meters, 4.5 over 14 and a half. You get the idea. These are very high grades, and they're very close to surface, and they're economic widths. Now, we know they're very serious about this because they actually did some cyanidation tests on the mineralization. They were able to recover 96% of the gold from that mineralization. So, these are impressive intercepts right from surface. This was greenfield exploration, and this was just left for Delta to develop. Now, if we focus a bit more on the I-zone sector, which I just showed. So the I-zone is located right here. But the reality is this is a 3.5 kilometer area of these structures, which is mineralized with gold occurrences that are very, very impressive. And I'm just going to show you one of them. Of course, it's the most impressive one, but we're looking at it's called the AF zone, a bit of an unfortunate acronym nowadays, but the grab samples that were taken on this outcrop, of the 123 samples, 58 were above 1 gram, 39 above 3 grams, 15 above 18, and 11 samples above 30 grams per ton. So these are very high-grade gold occurrences and very significant. And you can see there's up to 759 grams per ton gold on these gold occurrences. So this was left for us to explore, and we're planning on starting to do that very shortly in 2025. So really the takeaways for Delta Resources: location, location, location. We're in a prime jurisdiction in Ontario and Canada. We're right next to the Trans-Canada Highway. These are quality ounces right at surface, close to electric. Everything is there, and we're 45 minutes drive from a large center. The deposit we already have has the potential for multi-million ounces, open pit operation. But we have now acquired 308 square kilometers of property that has barely been touched by exploration. So we are starting to explore, basically at the belt scale, because we own pretty much the eastern portion of that greenstone belt. And important as well is we're even at the deposit, we're just barely scratching the surface. So there's a lot of potential that we need to develop here, and we're planning to start this in 2025. Of course, we're already working on the property, but in 2025, we're going to be starting a 10,000 meter drilling program that will be geared towards increasing the mineral inventory at the Eureka gold deposit, but also doing some of this grassroots exploration on these high priority, high gold grade occurrences in the southern portion of the deposit, some portion of the property. So that's Delta.
All right, well,
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Andre. There's some great results that you're getting out of there, and you've got a lot of work ahead of you. And
Yeah.
exciting times coming. Thank you.